Alright guys, hey! So, I'm out today. My dad's having his second eye surgery. Hopefully this video goes up in time. If not, it'll be there when you need it, I promise. Alright, so, first thing we need to do is, if you have any progress reports, you need to, hopefully you kept your fast bridge report that needed to go home and stay home. The progress report itself, if you have it signed, one person, I don't care who, I really don't care who, needs to take those progress reports, and this is for all classes, needs to take them all up and put them in a stack on top of the Chromebook cart, probably face down so no one can see your grades, because that's embarrassing for some of you. I get that. You only if it's signed and you put your house name on it, or house color. If it's not signed, keep it. Get it signed. Alright, so after that, we need to do the Friday bell ringer and the Monday bell ringer. Didn't do the Friday one because of student-led conference binders. Is what it is. Alright, so major events in the Reconquista. There was the establishment of the Kingdom of Aragon, which is one of those mini countries inside of the Iberian Peninsula. The marriage of Ferdinand II of Aragon and Isabella of Castile, another one of them. The Catholic Church reclaimed the Iberian Peninsula. Remember, the Iberian Peninsula is where Spain and Portugal are now. So which event best completes this list? Is it the beginning of civil war in North Africa, the creation of the Kingdom of Spain, the increase in trade on the Silk Road, the marriage of Henry VIII of England and Catherine of Aragon? Okay. Well, it can't be M. We aren't talking about North Africa. Can't be R. We're not talking about the Silk Road. And we haven't talked about this guy yet. We don't talk about him for another unit. We need to finish up this unit before we bring up this guy who killed two of his wives and divorced two others, and he was a very interesting man. So that leaves us with P, the creation of the Kingdom of Spain. So you could put either P or B, because this would be B if it was A, B, C, D. And you need to explain why that answer is correct in at least one sentence. Well, that is the only option that fits the list. I mean, it's the only one that makes sense. It's the only option that makes sense. M is way off base. R is way off base. S happens, but not during the Reconquista. All right, and then for today's bell ringer, Map Monday. So we have a map of the Italian city-states of the Renaissance. We have all the different colors here. All right, so what is the map showing? Well, it's showing the Italian city-states of the Renaissance. Duh, it has the title right there. Now, why was Italy so important during the Renaissance? Surrounded by water. Pretty easy access to trade up top too. Ding, ding, ding. Easy access for the rest of Europe. It's good for trading. It's good for trading. And then why was Florence considered one of the more important city-states during the Renaissance? Well, we talked about that in Thursday's notes, and you're also going to get a refresh and more info on it in today's notes. So Florence was considered more important because it was closer to the top of Italy, and the powerful and important Medici family lived there. Medici. Okay? You can say Medici if you want. I don't care. But it's, at least from the way I've been taught, it is pronounced Medici. Alright. Now that we've done that, we need to finish up our notes. We need to finish up the notes from Thursday because three of you four classes, first, second, and third, got to slide 13, and basically we're done. You need to go over slide 13, and then you need to do the writing slide. Okay, so some of the advantages to guilds are raw materials, tools, techniques, and the quality of the artifacts and creations were all controlled. So everyone was using the same quality materials, the same tools, they were taught the same way, the quality was all controlled. You weren't going to pay the same price to someone and get crap than if you had gone to someone else. They made very sure of that. There was equality among the members to prevent unfair competition. Again, Everyone's charging the same price. Everyone's equal. All right. It's not like gas station prices where you have one station that's charging $2.49 and another station that's charging $2.89. That's not fair at all. And yes, that is happening in Hickman County. Hickman's weird. New members would get training through apprenticeships, learning through hands-on work. All right, first and second period, that is what Janice is doing. Yes, Janice isn't doing as much right now, but they're still working really hard. All right, learning through apprenticeships. Think of working with your parents. I know some of you, your parents do construction, they do yard work, stuff like that, and you're working with them. That's learning through that hands-on work. And then there was usually a hierarchy in each guild, usually divided into masters, apprentices, and laborers. Masters were the head. They'd be at the top. They were the ones that were teachers. They were picking the prices. They were picking the materials. They were setting the techniques and the teachings. The apprentices are the ones learning from the masters because they want to be master rank. And then the laborers are the ones that haven't even made it to apprentice yet. But they're the ones that are doing a lot of the menial labor. All right, so they're the ones that would be laying the bricks for a mason who works with stone and brick. They would be laying all that while the master would be overseeing everything. The apprentices are like watching them work and giving them ideas and fixing stuff when it goes wrong, and the laborers are doing the main bulk of the work. Now, the city of Florence didn't have a port on the Mediterranean, but it was still very successful. All right, thinking back to that bell ringer, we saw Florence near the top. It wasn't right next to a port. All right, but it was still a very successful economy. The bankers of Florence successfully established a sound banking system. That banking system was so strong that the gold coins in Florence, called florin, became the standard coins throughout Europe. All right, that's the coins down here at the bottom. They look super cool. Many of the Florentine families became wealthy, and of course, they would wield great power throughout Florence and Europe. So Florence did not have a port on the Mediterranean Sea, but the bank was really strong because their coins became the standard coin used throughout Europe. If your area's coin or your area's money becomes the central standard money throughout an entire humongous set of countries, that's a really big deal. All right? You're the trendsetter. You're the influencer at that point. And why would the wealthy families have a ton of power? Well, they're able to get people to do what they want. Either pay them or help them. You got money, you got power. Simple as that. All right, and then our last slide, it's a writing prompt, 5 sentences. In the early Renaissance, Florence was an independent city-state of about 60,000 people. It developed that guild system. They had many writers, painters, philosophers, and architects, and they became a model of Renaissance culture through the 1700s. So you need to explain how Florence became an important center of trade and learning. So what I would do is I would write a topic sentence, saying the city of Florence became an important center of trade and learning through these 4 ways. And then I would use these 4 bullet points and make a sentence out of each one. All right, give more detail though. You can't just say they developed a guild system. Give more detail about the guild system. All right, give some more detail about them being an independent city-state. Maybe talk about them not having their own port. Maybe them being closer to the top of Italy. The writers, painters, philosophers, and architects, explain how that would be a good thing. Why would it be so good to have all that culture there? And then that model of Renaissance culture, how? How were they that model of Renaissance culture? All right? And so you need to finish that up and turn that in. It will say it's late. My email will explode from that. I don't care. Excuse me. Yes, cell phone. I am awake. All right? We're skipping the video. All right. Now, the new the new notes for today are the Medici family in Florence. And that goes along with Standard 741. We need to identify the importance of Florence, Italy, and the Medici family in the early stages of the Renaissance. So we need to locate them on a map. We need to identify the Medici family, figure out how they were important, how Florence was important, and how the Medici family was important. Well, we've already talked about Florence a little bit, so some of this is going to be just like we already did this. I'm confused. And really, it's just because the textbook that we got the info from to make the slides didn't have a clear break. If we cut off right with geography, it felt really short. It felt incomplete. But if we started without Florence for this set, it also felt incomplete. So you're getting a bit of a refresh on the importance of Florence. See? We literally already had this. In the late 1400s, Italy was divided into a number of independent trade cities. The map shows Italy's important trade cities through the end of the 1490s. And as you can see on the map, they had at least 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they had like 8, and then obviously you have the Papal States. The trade city of Florence, which is more in the middle, it has the star there, but it's more in the middle, was an important city-state, and many historians consider Florence to be the birthplace of the Renaissance. Well, they're labeled with republic, duchy, or kingdom title over them. We've already talked about this. This is in our last slides, so I'm kind of going through it fast. The Papal States are where the Pope lived, and Florence was a good place for the birth of the Renaissance. It's close to the coast, it's close to the center of Italy, and it's close to the rest of Europe by being close to northern Italy. So needless to say, it's just a real dang good location. Alright, these are those bullet points that we have for that writing prompt on the last set of notes. So in the early Renaissance, Florence was an independent trade city of about 60,000 people. They developed that guild system. They had many writers, painters, philosophers, and architects. Alright, writers write, painters paint, philosophers are the ones that do all that deep thinking, and architects are the ones that are building things. And they became a model of Renaissance culture through the 1700s. And one of those keys of Florence's success was those guilds. Members from the guilds would range from masons, builders, and sculptors to bankers and lawyers. No, Mason Olson, that is not you. All guild members voted on city issues. The Palazzo Vecchio, which was built in medieval times, was the home of the guilds and the city's culture. Well, the key to their success was guilds. A guild could be anyone could be in a guild if they had a skilled job, like a mason or a lawyer. All right, again, guilds were for trades with some skill. So if you are just a clerk at a gas station, you wouldn't really get a guild. But if you're working in a restaurant or a fast food place in the back, you could still be part of a guild because you are cooking. All right, you're doing something more than just cleaning. Yes, good girl. Good morning. Sorry, my cat's here. All right, why do you think the home of the guilds would also be the center of Florence's culture? Well, they voted on city issues, and most of the town's workers met there. So, of course, that's where the culture is going to be made. That's where it's going to be spread. Again, it's like finding out school gossip in the hallways and in the cafeteria or the gym. It's where you see a bunch of your classmates. It's where you're hearing the gossip. All right, and I guess the classroom counts too, but you're not seeing as many of them there. All right, again, another review slide. The city of Florence did not have a port on the Mediterranean, but still had a very successful economy. The bankers of Florence successfully established that sound banking system because the Florentine gold coin, the florin, became the standard coin in trade throughout Europe. Big deal there. All right, many of those Florentine families became wealthy and would wield great power in Florence and in Europe, one of them being the Medici family. Florence did not have a port on the Mediterranean Sea. Their gold coin that they used in Florence became the standard coin used throughout Europe. Again, big deal. Big deal. Murdoch, quit attacking your sister. We're leaving for my dad's surgery in like a half hour, so I'm like trying to rush, but they're being cute. And why do you think the wealthy families would have a bunch of power in Florence and Europe? Because the wealthy people are able to get people to do what they want, either paying them or helping them somehow. Again, you got money, you got power. Okay, now we're to the new stuff. Told you we were going to see the Palazzo Vecchio. At least I told at least one class. All right, so here is the Palazzo Vecchio with its clock tower. All right, yes, that is a turtle statue and a man riding a turtle. Don't ask me. Or is that a tortoise? I don't know the difference. Don't ask me. It's just there. Okay, I've never been to Florence. I don't know. All right, so we need to analyze that picture and answer the question. I know it says next slide. For you, it's on the next slide, but here's the writing. So what can you infer or think about the guilds from the photograph of the Palazzo Vecchio? So look at that picture. What works? What makes it seem like, what can you learn about the guilds just from looking at that picture? All right. They've been around a long time. They must have been wealthy to build this building. I mean, let's be real. This building is huge. That's going to cost a ton of money to build. If you look at buildings around it, it looks pretty old. It looks pretty darn old. All right. They must have had wealth. Look at all those fancy statues around. I mean, look at that one's newer, but still. All right. It has the crests of the guilds up top. Right, it has all the crests of the guilds up top, so that's showing off. That's pretty important, and even has some on the side, but you can't see it. All right, it's so important. It's got a clock in it, and that was a bell tower. At one point, that was a bell tower, so it was a very important building. All right, so we need to read the statements. There's going to be a box. There's a box off to the side for you guys. You're typing F if the statement is a fact, or O if it's an opinion. I shouldn't have to say this, but fact is something you can prove, and opinion is something you can't prove. All right. Florence is the most beautiful city in Italy. Typos galore. You can fix that if you want. The florin became the standard coin used throughout Europe. Florence developed a strong guild system. Florence was a trade city. All right. Florence is the most beautiful city in Italy. Can you prove that? Can you prove that everyone thinks the same thing? No, that's an opinion. The florin became the standard coin used throughout Europe. Well, that's a fact. We saw that in the earlier reading. Florence developed a strong guild system. Again, F, we saw that in the reading. Florence was a trade city. Yes. We read that in the reading. Okay, so you have Ophif. Ophif. O-F-F-F. That lands better when I'm in front of kids. This is awkward. Okay, moving on. All right, now to the new stuff. Now to the Medicis. The Medici family was a powerful banking family in Florence. Okay, they're banking. They're controlling the banks. Oh man, they have got money. If they have got money, they've got power. They were the ruling family of Florence from 1434 to 1737. They had power for 303 years. Now, not fully 303 years, because there were 2 brief periods where they did not rule, but they still had a crap ton of power. All right, the powerful banking family was the Medici family. They ruled from 1434 to 1737. And why do you think they had this power? Well, they were wealthy and controlled the money in Florence. So they had money. They controlled the money by controlling the banks. That's going to let them have power and control over the entire area. All right? They got money. They got power. They control where the money is. They're going to have a crap ton of power. The family came from humble origins in an area north of Florence. However, sometime in the 1200s, they moved to Florence, and by the 1300s, they were those wealthy banking leaders. And then by the 1400s, they played a key political role in the city government. So they went just from having the money and having control that way to having say-so in the government. Oh boy. They also played a central role in the development of the Renaissance in Florence. So they weren't just using their money to get what they wanted in government, they were also doing it to help fund the Renaissance. So in the 1300s, they became the wealthy banking leaders of Florence. And by the 1400s, they played key political roles in the city government. Now, how do you think they played that central role in the development of the Renaissance? Well, they got money. So they're going to use it. They have so much money, they can influence politics and culture. Influence, getting people to do what they want. They're already proving that with the government, and they're going to start doing that with the culture. They're going to be sort of an ancestor or an older family sort of thing to influencers. All right? What they can do, other people want to do. What they pay for, other people want to pay for. All right? So here we have 5 of the more well-known, quote unquote, I say well-known because obviously you haven't heard of them before, of the Medici family. So here you have Giovanni de' de' Medici. BC. Okay, like BC, before Christ. Okay. He lived from 1360 to 1429. He was the son of the founder of the family, and he founded the Medici Bank. Cosimo de' Medici lived from 1389 to 1464, was his son, and he established the political power. So he's the one getting him into politics. He worked behind the scenes to see his supporters hold key political posts. So he's pushing for his people to hold political posts. He's paying for them to do that. We see that a lot in government today. Lorenzo de' Medici lived from 1449 to 1492, same year Columbus sailed the ocean blue, and the same year as the Battle of Granada. He is the grandson of Cosimo de' Medici. Okay, so he's Giovanni's great-grandson. He was a poet and patron of the arts. He was known as Lorenzo the Magnificent. So he's paying for the artists to make their art, and he's also creating art in the form of poetry. Piero was Lorenzo's kid. He was around from 1472 to 1503. He got political power, but he didn't do so well, and he got kicked out of Florence. Family's bound to make mistakes eventually. Someone's going to mess up, and Piero just happened to fit the bill there. And then his brother Giovanni, who becomes Pope Leo X, as a cardinal in the Catholic Church, he used his influence to restore the Medici family to Florence. So he's fixing Piero's mistakes, but he also becomes Pope. Do you know how much power you're going to have in Europe if you become Pope and your family is so rich? Like, dude's busted. Like, dude is OP. It's insane. So what you need to do is, using that chart, you need to complete it by using the information on the table. So what you're going to do is you're going to type in the person's name. Right? Yes, you need to type them. No, you cannot just copy paste. I see you multiple students in every class. You're not just copy pasting the names. All right. So here you should pause and do it on your own, but I know you guys, you're just going to wait for me to give you the answers. So, I'm a Medici known for being secretive and gaining political power. Well, that's Cosimo. He was working from the sidelines. He was in the back paying for them to get power, paying for people to get power. The guy who supported the arts, that's going to be Lorenzo de' Medici, a.k.a. Lorenzo the Magnificent, because he was the one who was writing poetry. He was the one that was paying for all of the artists. The one who got the family into the banking business, well, that's Giovanni de' Medici. All right, he's the head of the whole thing. He's the whole reason that they were able to do this. Congrats, Giovanni. You started a legacy. The politician who angered people? Well, Piero. Piero messed up a little bit. But that's okay. Because the guy who used his religious influence, his brother, Giovanni, who became Pope Leo X, helps fix his mistakes. You know? It's always good to have a sibling that'll help fix your mistakes to help the family. Assuming you and your siblings don't want to kill each other all the time. Which I'm sure a lot of you do. Alright. Now, you need to pretend that you are a young person living in Florence during the Renaissance. Which Medici leader would you like to be related to? So you need 3 sentences for this. 1 sentence for saying who you would want to be related to. And then 2 sentences or 3 sentences if you're going for 4, because it says 3 to 4 sentences. I'm banking you're probably only going to write 3. Right? So 1 sentence explaining who you want to be related to, and 2 sentences explaining why. All right. Yes, you need to pick one. Pick one of those 5. Okay. I don't have an answer for this. This is writing. All right. And again, we're skipping the video. All right. I don't have an answer for that writing prompt. It's your opinion. You're doing what you do. All right. When you're done with these notes, you turn them in. And then, this is for first period Dragon time. Hey, first period Dragon time. You are going to be doing a Renaissance activity of creating your own modern Mona Lisa. If the Mona Lisa existed today, what would she look like? All right. She could be wearing Nike clothing. She could be wearing some Victoria's Secret. She'd probably have a phone. She could have some Starbucks. All right. She could be near Hollywood. Okay. Who knows? All right. So the Mona Lisa, painted in the 16th century by Leonardo da Vinci, who we'll talk about on Wednesday and Thursday and possibly Friday. He's in the long set of notes. Is one of the most famous paintings in the world. For centuries, this oil painting has been studied and admired as a great piece of Renaissance artwork. It is speculated, meaning we think but we're not sure, that the woman in the painting is Lisa del Giocondo, who was the wife of a wealthy Italian silk merchant. So yes, she did exist. We just aren't sure who. It would make sense if it's called the Mona Lisa and the model's first name was Lisa. I mean, it makes sense. The painting now hangs in the Louvre of Paris, France, behind a protective case. Is visited by thousands of people every year. So it's one of those paintings to show an imaginary background. And Leonardo was one of the first artists to use an aerial perspective, meaning they're not just like directly in your face. It's actually showing some perspective. Perspective is depth. Makes it look 3D. Makes it look real. All right. Leonardo da Vinci himself was a painter, inventor, mathematician, architect, musician, geologist, cartographer, botanist, sculptor, writer. This man was a jack of all trades. He could do almost everything. He's considered to be one of the most talented people who ever lived. Holy moly, he's got a lot of talent. So looking at the Mona Lisa can also give us some insight to Renaissance life in terms of artistic style, what they wore, how women were presented. All right. However, our task is to create a modern Mona Lisa. What would the Mona Lisa look like now if we had her painted in the 21st century? So, on the back of your packet, which you should have gotten, first period should have gotten this. All right. Off of the rolling cart, you have a packet which is 2 papers stapled together. The very back of the paper, the very back of the packet is blank. That's where you're going to draw her. All right. All right. Yes, you can use the internet for inspiration. No, you are not printing pictures. You are having to draw this. You need to draw. Okay. No, I'm not judging your artwork. I mean, y'all ain't seen me draw, but it's real bad. So I'm not judging your artwork, but I want to see what you think she would look like. All right. What images or image would be behind your Mona Lisa? What would be the background? What would she be wearing? Would she have that same secretive smile? How will we know she's from the present day? What aspects of her will represent the 21st century? How are you going to make it seem like she's modern? Okay. So, what inferences can you make about women in the Renaissance from the painting? Okay, so here I want you to write what you're kind of gleaning from the Renaissance. All right, maybe it's they're dressed modestly, meaning they're covered. Maybe it's that little line right here, that little line right here. She was actually wearing a veil. Okay, that's not just a mess up. She was wearing a veil over her hair. All right, she has a little secretive smile. Okay, it doesn't look like she's wearing a ton of makeup. She definitely don't have her nails painted, or she really don't have her nails done, stuff like that. How would she be different if she were painted in the 21st century? This is where you're going to be breaking stuff down. This is where you're getting your ideas. Okay? And then, here's an example of what she looks like, a bigger example of what she looks like. It's not in color, but if you're watching the video, it's in color. And then blah, blah, blah. All right, guys.